Good morning, good morning. I'm Andy Hodges and this is The Mint, live from ZTN headquarters here in Harare, Zimbabwe. Now we're looking at two main stories today. Minister Chasi, the Minister of Energy of Zimbabwe, names Zesa debtors, but you'll be surprised it isn't what you expected. And we're going to give you an inside look at Uber's new passenger drone. Don't go away. All this and more on The Mint. We'll be right back. Now then, of course, we normally look at close to home, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Now, yesterday the market gained 1% to close the day at a total market capitalization of 25.15 billion. The industrial index rose 0.74% to 638.58, really buoyed by gains in Econet and Cassava. Econet was up 4.9% on the day. The mining index, you can see, was unchanged. In fact, the mining index hasn't really moved over the last couple of trading sessions. It appears it's treading water, and investors are more looking at commodity stocks that are trending quite high at the moment in the market. Other notable gains of the day were recorded in Zesa Holdings, up 20%, PPC up 18.05%, Simbisa up 4.5%, and Old Mutual again up 1.57%. Losses were recorded in counters such as Meikles, down 4.35%, Seedco down 3.09%, BAT down 0.1%, and Seedco International down 0.01%. Of course, as you know, Seedco trades here on both Seedco International and Seedco trade on Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, but Seedco International's primary listing is in Botswana. Now, the total value of trade dropped 45.98% to 4.11 million yesterday, dominated by trades in Delta, Econet and Old Mutual, contributing 38.47, 31.31 and 11.14 respectively. However, the story that we have to talk about is the inflation figures. Yesterday, Zimbabwe inflation figures came out. Year-on-year inflation hit 175.66%. That's from 97.85% in May. Month-on-month inflation also increased to 39.26% from 12.54% in the previous month. But listen to this one. The food basket inflation hit 251.94%. Now, why is that shocking? Well, think about it. The exchange rate hadn't really moved in the month of May to June. Yeah, nothing really changed fundamentally. What changed, of course, was retailers or wholesalers started to price their goods and services, particularly commodities, food basic commodities, at anticipated replacement value, which was way higher than the prevailing interbank rate. So that's why I think food inflation was so high at 251%. Analysts believe, however, that there should be a general decline in these inflation figures looking at the new month-on-month numbers. We're going to keep an eye on that. Anyway, we want to hear what you have to think. Do you think inflation is starting to come down? Do you think food inflation is coming down? Get hold of us on Zim Papers TV Network, our Facebook page, or our website, ztn.co.zw. Now then, South African markets. Now, one thing we like to do is highlight some of the sectors that companies are looking for jobs in South Africa. Well, they generally don't plan to hire more people in the coming quarter in South Africa. That's between July and September, according to the Manpower Group Employment Outlook survey published yesterday. Compared to this time in 2018, the number of companies that intend to add to their payroll declined 2 percentage points. The survey of 752 employers of different sizes revealed. Now, I want to take you through some of the sectors. Now, finance, insurance and real estate, they're looking at increasing hires by 12%. The banking and business sector keeps intending to hire more people, with companies intending to add jobs increasing 3 percentage points compared to the previous year, and hiring intention staying stable at 12% on the quarter-to-quarter basis. The public sector, however, remains unworried about economic conditions, as a net of 7% of employers are intending to hire more people. Restaurants and hotels. This is obviously a good sector, and a lot of Zimbabweans are working in the hospitality industry in South Africa. South African tourism has a really bad time. It's had a terrible time recently between visa troubles and also the drought in the Western Cape. But a net of 44% of companies in the sector intend to hire people in the third quarter of 2018. Mining and quarrying, they're also 2% of the companies in that sector expect to add jobs in Q3 2019, and that jumps to 4% if you take into account seasonal variations. But construction is not happening. Construction will be down 9%. Of those companies, because we know there was a lot of bloodbath in the construction industry, of course, as a lot of huge projects in South Africa, due to the economic situation, didn't take off the ground. So that looks like it's going to come down, a net loss of jobs in the construction sector. Now then, let's have a look at U.S. markets. Now, U.S. markets reached highs on Monday as Citigroup got the corporate earnings off on the right foot. Citigroup reported second quarter earnings and revenue that topped analyst expectations. Gains from the initial public offering of TradeWeb, an electronic bond trading platform, drove the bank's results past Wall Street estimates. In fact, this week it's banks, because JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America and Goldman Sachs are all expected to report quarterly earnings later this week. Despite Citigroup's strong report, however, analysts believe that S&P 500 companies' revenue earnings will fall by 3% in the second quarter of 2019. Monday's move comes after the Federal Reserve Bank Chair Jerome Powell indicated during congressional testimony that an interest rate cut could be on the horizon from the central bank. The Dow closed above 27,000 for the first time on last Thursday, and Friday's gains brought its increase to last week to 1.5%. Investors stateside have an eye on developments in the U.S.-China trade war after Reuters reported on Sunday that the U.S. may approve licenses for companies to restart new sales to Chinese giant Huawei. Now then, European stocks. Now, European stocks reversed the gains that they had on the previous week, really back on the back of China economic figures. Now, China's economy on Monday showed it grew 6.2% in the second quarter. That is the slowest pace in 27 years. Now, still, China's GDP, gross domestic product growth, was in line with expectations, and data for industrial production, retail sales, and fixed asset investment came in above analyst expectations. Chinese stocks got a boost from the fresh data, with the Shanghai Composite climbing 0.76% on the news, and Shenzhen Composite up 1.26%. Now then, Italy's business outlook, and you'll be surprised because Italy is supposed to be at the moment the problem child of the European Union. They have some budgetary problems there. But apparently their business outlook improved more sharply than any other country in the European Union for the 4 months to June. That's according to a global survey released on Monday, which offers hope for the country's struggling economy. At least it looks like Italy is starting to do something about its weak economy. And in terms of individual stocks, Belgian-Dutch biotech firm Galapagos saw its shares leap more than 17% to a record high after US-based Gilead Sciences announced an additional $5.1 billion stake in the company. And at the other end of the blue chips was British software business Micro Focus. Their shares slipped 5% after its executive chairman sold £11.6 million in shares. Now then, let's have a quick look at Chinese stocks. Now again, everything about China is about the Chinese data. They recovered from an earlier slip to finish the day higher yesterday following the release of GDP data. Again, I emphasize, this was Chinese economy is growing at its slowest pace in 27 years. China released second quarter figures on Monday showing its economy slowed to 6.2%. As I said, the weakest rate in 27 years. I'm going to keep saying that because China has always been on such a huge growth trajectory. Now things are starting to come back in. In fact, in a tweet yesterday, President Trump claimed credit for this. Trump said it was because of his policies and his trade war with China that the Chinese economy is contracting. So it's in their interest to come to the table and do a deal. Otherwise, it'll get worse. That's what President Trump claiming he's responsible for Chinese economic weakness. Now then, from April to June, China's economy grew 6.2% from a year ago. The country's Statistics Bureau said on Monday that was in line with analyst poll by Reuters. This comes amid increasing expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank will cut interest rates in its July meeting. In fact, 100% of analysts polled said that the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank will cut interest rates by 25 basis points in its meeting in July. Now then, let's have a quick look at African currencies. Now, in good news that could be possibly good news for Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has become a shareholder of a group called Africa 50, and the 28th country on the continent to join the Pan-African Investment Fund that focuses on infrastructure development. Tweeting yesterday, Secretary of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Mr. George Gubamatanga, confirmed the development. Zimbabwe joined the fund during its annual shareholding meeting in Kigali, Rwanda on Wednesday. Zimbabwe becomes the 28th shareholder of Africa 50 following the signing of the agreement in Kigali today. This opens the opportunity for infrastructure funding. We continue on our journey to be part of the broader global financial community, wrote Mr. Gubamatanga on Twitter. In the 2012 declaration on the Programme for Infrastructure Development in Africa, African heads of state called for innovative solutions to accelerate infrastructure delivery. Now, of course, we did a report yesterday which shows that Zimbabwe requires $34 billion by 2050 in terms of infrastructure spending. Of course, the major chunk of that, around $24 billion, is going to be on roads infrastructure. So this Africa 50 is a great initiative for Zimbabwe to join. And of course, African heads of state, as I said, call for innovative solutions. And this was really because of limited public resources the private sector had to play a significant role in delivering the infrastructure which is necessary to support strong economic growth. We cannot emphasize it enough. Infrastructure is what supports economic growth in any type of economy, and that's anywhere in the world, not just in Africa. Now then, after broad consultations with African stakeholders, the African Development Bank established Africa 50 as a new investment vehicle that was designed as an independent infrastructure fund. It focuses on high-impact national and regional projects, mostly in the energy and transport sectors, with a particular emphasis on increasing the pipeline of investment-ready projects. The 2019 shareholders meeting discussed investment opportunities, innovation, partnerships, and future of the continent's infrastructure. Africa's 50's investor base is very strong, actually. Apart from the 28 African countries, investors are the African Development Bank, the Central Bank of West African States, and Bank Al-Maghrib. It also operates a commercial financial institution whose headquarters are in Casablanca, Morocco. Now then, let's have a look at the US dollar. Now, yesterday's trading, the euro was pretty much unmoved against the dollar, still trading in its recent trade range. Foreign exchange markets were actually quiet. Australian dollar enjoyed a boost from the Chinese data. Speculators have added short positions against the dollar in the week up to July 9th, while more leveraged funds bought dollars, according to U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Some analysts are surprised the euro actually is as strong as it is, to be frank, and they think that the euro should gain even more, particularly on the back of the anticipated Federal Reserve Bank easing. Elsewhere, Australian dollar reached a 10-month high. Of course, stronger than expected data from China, China being Australia's major trading partner, of course. Commodities, let's have a look at commodities. Gold dipped, sticking about the $1,400 level, and in fact, it looks like they will probably trade between 1,404 and 1,421. If it breaks any of those support levels, then obviously we'll see which direction gold is going. But at the moment, it's trading in a very small range. And oil prices nudged higher on Monday as Chinese industrial output and retail data topped expectations. Again, everything's about Chinese data and its effect on the market. In fact, before it used to be US data had a huge impact on the market. Now it's Chinese because of the position they've taken in world trade and how vital their economy is to the world economy. And in fact, analysts at ANZ Bank said China's crude oil imports year-to-date still looked impressive, even as imports fell in June for a second straight month. China's crude oil throughput rose to a record 13.0 million barrels per day in June. Well, that's it for In the Market. Now, coming up after the breather, Uber unveils its new passenger drone. We're going to give you some pictures of what it looks like inside. And also, Minister Chassis, he names Zesa debtors. It's not what you expect. All this and more, don't go away. The Mint will be right back. Welcome back to the Mint. Of course, we want to hear from you, so please keep your comments coming in, because there are loads of comments coming in from you, and we really appreciate that. On our Facebook page, Zim Papers TV Network, or our website, ztn.co.zw. Please go to the site, because there you'll see previous shows like Heartbeat, The Couch, and of course previous episodes of The Mint. Very great shows, and they're coming up weekly on ZTN, so keep an eye on the website to get our program schedule. Now then, Uber. Uber has unveiled the first passenger drone. It believes it's the future of transport, and we have a couple of pictures of what this drone-like vehicle should look like. It's going to carry passengers through the air. Now, the vehicle on display for the first time at the company's Elevate conference in Washington can carry up to 4 passengers and looks like an airplane-helicopter hybrid, as opposed to some of the more futuristic drones that have been designed. It has been designed through a partnership between Uber and a company called Jaunt Air Mobility. The companies aim to have a working model in the air by 2023. The combination of an airplane-like wing and helicopter-esque rotor will let the aircraft remain perfectly level at all times during flight. The designer said it also means fewer complicated flaps and moving parts. This can take off and land from a 50-foot pad just like a helicopter. Now that means the aircraft can take trips across cities in minutes. What's more, it's far more cleaner than the current helicopters that fly around some of the cities, particularly in America. So at launch, the aircraft will be as cheap as an Uber Black ride. Imagine this, when you want to pay for a ride in it. Uber's head of its Elevate division said at the conference. It's going to be interesting, of course, because I always ask the question, will you have traffic police in the air? That'll be interesting, won't it? And how would they monitor which way people go? It always reminds you of the futuristic films that we see with all the cars whizzing around up in the air. Anyway, we're going to keep an eye on that for you, but Uber expects to have a working prototype by 2023. Now then, European Union and Zimbabwe. Now, last month, Zimbabwe and the EU launched a historic formal dialogue, which was based on Article 8 of the Cotonou Partnership Agreement, which governs relations between member states of the Caribbean, African, and Pacific regions with the EU. The next such meeting is expected to be held in November this year, following the parties' agreement to meet twice a year. In the past, the European Investment Bank had shelved plans to lend to the local financial sector after Zimbabwean banks told the lender that appetite for medium-term loans was presently low. Then European Union Ambassador to Zimbabwe, is unfortunately left now, Philip Van Dam, said that while the EIB was prepared to advance money for medium-term on lending to local banks, financial institutions had said it wasn't profitable. But look, I must emphasize, the EIB has been a fair-weather friend for Zimbabwe. Even during the sanctions that were going on, EIB was here lending. And in fact, the EIB is owed money by Zimbabwe. However, they are still looking at opportunities to see how they can negotiate with Zimbabwe to get out of that debt and also then start a program of lending again. So that's really cool, and I really applaud the EIB for that. But anyway, we have this video of one of our reporters, Blessing Manati, reporting for the Mint in Jaka. Listen to what the EU ambassador had to say.
The European Union Investment Bank, EIB, is reportedly looking at investing into Zimbabwe's financial services sector.
There is interest in Zimbabwe, and our member states quite regularly have business delegation coming into the country. European Investment Bank is looking at opportunities here.
In the past, the EIB has expressed interest in lending to Zimbabwean companies, but put this on ice following strained relations with former President Robert Mugabe's administration.
I have the feeling they are still holding back, and I see 2 major reasons for that. One is the macroeconomic situation, which is unstable. There are issues about the currency and the possibilities of expatriating profits that one can generate in Zimbabwe.
Ambassador Olkonen said European firms are waiting on speedy reforms from President Mnangagwa before fully committing to the country.
European companies want to have a transparency and a level playing ground, and we very much like to see reforms in that direction, and that would also then, I'm sure, also help investment come to the country.
The EU envoy was positive that the EIB will pour funds into local banks as soon as comprehensive reforms kick in.
I think the dialogue between the EU and Zimbabwe is just so welcome. It's a chance, it shows that possibly the government's re-engagement efforts are starting to work, and at least people are talking. We always say, if you're not at the table, nothing can be solved. So at least the EU and Zimbabwe are finally talking, and engagement process is working now with the foreign minister in London as well. Anyway, we'll keep following that story, and obviously, as I said, the EIB is a great friend of Zimbabwe. Now then, I'm joined, of course, by our in-house analyst. I call him Kutunai Sherao from Business Weekly. Welcome, Kutunai.
Thank you, Andy.
Interesting story, because Euromoney, of course, give yearly awards. And this year, of course, the top bank in Zimbabwe is Commercial Bank of Zimbabwe. Now, they're the first amongst equals, if I can call them that.
That's CBZ.
CBZ.
Yeah, well, CBZ is Zimbabwe's biggest bank by assets, by their loan book as well. So I think it's a deserving award.
But so, I mean, in fact, the Blessing Mudavanu, CBZ Holdings chief executive, he said the country's largest commercial bank by assets basis, because he said, was on Wednesday honoured for its commitment to excellence and for pursuing sound managerial practices in its operations put in place by new management with international experience. However, I don't know if things are rosy for the banks going forward. I think, number one, I'd like to look at the interest rates, for example. I mean, I still think they're too low, tonight. I think they're, what, 25, 27%. Cash rate, the RBZ overnight rate is 50. Inflation rate, as you know, has gone up terribly in the last quarter. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's a catch-22, Andy. But then again, you need to look at the ability of your customers to be able to repay the loan. You might try to index it against inflation, but at the end of the day, when you give it to somebody, if they fail to pay, it will come back to haunt you as a non-performing loan.
But Agribank, I'm told, are sticking to their prices, apparently, which is quite great. They're saying farmers can't manage the higher interest rate, so...
Yeah, so I think for Agribank, they have to look at the caliber of the farmer. If you are going to give it to a proper farmer, then you know that you're going to get your returns back. But if you give it to any
Tom, Dick and Harry,
exactly,
I like that. Tom, Dick and Harry,
your cell phone farmers, then
I'm sorry for anybody out there who's named Tom, Dick and Harry, but we don't mean you. Now then, but looking at Kenya now, the same Euromoney Awards, Kenya Commercial Bank, KCB Group, was once again named the best lender in Kenya, thanks to its ever-expanding network. The top-tier lender noted the excellent performance was a clear demonstration of a social-economic contribution to the region and commitment to creating value in the economy. In fact, KCB Group's footprint has 250 branches regionally across East Africa. But look at some of the names that won the huge awards. Best Bank in the World, DBS. Now, DBS is a Singapore-based bank, the largest bank in Southeast Asia. So they won the best bank by Euromoney. And other awards went to Citibank, the world's best bank for transaction services, Morgan Stanley, the world's best bank for markets and world's best bank for financial institutions, HSBC, the world's best bank for SMEs, and Lazard became the world's best bank for advisory services. So Euromoney is a well-respected financial award given to banks across the world, and of course Zimbabwean banks are up there with sound financial system. A lot of the banks, CBZ for example, Kutunai, has already hit 100 million capitalization, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they've already passed that way back. Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the banks are close, are they not?
Yeah, they are. Well, given what has happened again with RTGS balances, then they've managed to get to that target.
Let's hope that they don't increase the capital base of the but anyway, we'll keep an eye on that too. Now then, our next story, WhatsApp is shutting down spam. And the funny thing is that they've chosen a specific date. The date is December the 7th, 2019. On that very specific date, Facebook-owned company said in an update on its website, it plans to start taking legal action against those who send bulk and non-personal messages through its system, and against those who help others to spam WhatsApp users. It will only be looking for actual abuse. Even companies that publicly claim they have the ability to use WhatsApp to send big message blasts will be in the crosshairs of Facebook. WhatsApp did not say why it had chosen December the 7th. It just seems to be an arbitrary date for some reason. But it gives the third-party companies currently providing bulk messaging services on the platform exactly 6 months to wind down their operations. This includes companies that are verified under the WhatsApp Business Solution Providers program, which gives them legal access to WhatsApp systems for business purposes. Listen to this. WhatsApp was built for private messages to help people chat with their loved ones, conduct business, or talk confidentially with a doctor. That's the use. It was not meant for spam. I've got spam. I can't stand spam, Kudzanai.
Yes,
it's a good move, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a new version of privacy anyway.
So. And you just get all these, I don't know what else to call it, junk. How about that? Yeah, it just comes through your WhatsApp and you don't know what to do with it. Well, what about your opinions? Do you think spam, this is a good move by WhatsApp? Well, please get hold of us on our Zim Papers TV network Facebook page and, of course, website ztn.co.zw. Now then, this is our main story. Chassis, Minister of Energy, Fortune Chassis, he named debtors. However, I have a feeling you may be disappointed in what he then said. Anyway, in Jaka Majaka, Mint reporter in Jaka Majaka caught up with Minister Chassis. Listen to what he had to say. He was saying, in essence, that the numbers, you know, people expected them to say, okay, Andy owes so much, Kudzanai owes so much. He didn't do that, Kudzanai.
Yeah, he did. And we were expecting the big names to be out there. And I know Zesa have since taken some of them to court, and I was surprised that he didn't mention some of those.
He should have mentioned them. Because, but look at the numbers. He said here that domestic debtors make up 24% of Zesa's 1.2 billion debt. Of 257 million, that's domestic debtors. That's where we wanted to see the names, of course, just because we're nosy, not because it mattered, right?
Look, if it was the ordinary person Andy, you would see very small amounts.
Right.
Of course, cumulatively, it's huge amounts, but I know there are some big chefs with more than 100,000 worth of debt.
Well, he did say that there was no one was going to be spared. He said that he would go for everybody who owed. However, he also said that he thought disconnecting was the last option.
Look, it should be the first option. There's no free lunch here, Andy. We are in this because of non-payment of our debts. If you use a service, you need to pay for it.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers, right? He says they got 800,000 customers, Zesa, miners who are lobbying to pay Zesa in foreign currency. The tariffs owe Zesa 69 million RTGS, Zim dollars, while the industrial sector owes 94 million. Farmers owe 143 million. Commercial lighting owes an estimated 92 million. Parastatals, 43 million. Local authorities appear to be the biggest debtors, 300 million. And he was happy to name them.
Yeah, he was. And local authorities, obviously, they will pass the buck back to the residents and say, because our residents are not paying, that's why we are failing to meet our dues.
Are we not paying, or are they using the money for different purposes? I suppose that's the question, isn't it? That's where we ask for the Auditor General, right, to come in.
And then they have to unveil.
Well, listen to some of them. Bulawayo owes Zesa 112 million, Gweru 28 million, Kwekwe 18 million, Kadoma 10 million, Victoria Falls is one of the largest ones as well, Kariba 4 million, Marandera 3 million, Chegutu 3 million, Mutare 2 million. So, of course, the problem here, of course, is that if they want to pay Zesa, they're going to have to pay. We are going to have to pay for it, are we not?
Yes, it will come, like I said, it will come back to the residents. But look at Victoria Falls, for example, with the kind of business that they have there. Why is the local authority not paying its debts?
And I'm told everything in Victoria Falls in US dollars if you go there, I'm told, right?
See now.
Even in the shops. So I don't know about SI 142, but anyway, enough said about that, right? But anyway, you weren't expecting it, but at least Minister Chassis appears to be serious. He's a man of his word. Even when he said he had said the 10 million wasn't paid, he apologized for that, and we always give him credit for any politician that admits their mistake, but also says why. So well done to you, Minister Chassis. Anyway, our final story, of course. You know how you can make $1 million? Well, a guy decided to design glasses, eyewear, for dogs. Can you believe this? Sounds pretty dumb, doesn't it? But not if actually someone made $1 million from it. In fact, he started off with goggles, and they now have expanded their business to include backpacks, flotation jackets, T-shirts, caps and toys, all for dogs. He's a millionaire. Well, that's it for the Mint today. You know where you can find us. You can find us here on ZTN live every morning at 10 o'clock. Zim Papers TV network Facebook page and our website ztn.co.zw. Well, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We have more top stories coming up. And of course, I keep promising you about looking at Bureau de Changes. This week we're going to do a show on that, looking at Bureau de Changes and are they driving the parallel market rates. Well, tonight I can just say thank you for coming on the show.
You,
all of you, thank you. Have a great day. Be safe and look after each other. I'm Andy Hodges. I'll see you tomorrow.